We would like to talk about the last part of the text, the short happy life of Francis Macomber. And the first pages of the story, we want to talk about the relationship between Francis and Margaret Macomber, and it's kind of built upon who is the most macho. And Margaret doesn't like when Francis developed into a more macho man, because she likes to be the one in charge. And Wilson, he thinks that the relationship doesn't seem to work, and it's because he sees them as equal. Like in the start, he both sees them as women, and therefore they're equal, and then the relationship doesn't work. In this part, we also learn some new things about Wilson. We learned that he's very dedicated to his job, and that he doesn't really care about his clients personally. And this quote here shows, but he made his living by them, and their standards were his standards as long as they were hiring him.
So, what reasons can be found for the buffalo hunting being a success for Francis? Um, there's kind of an emotional development in the text because in the beginning he's a bit shy and he develops to being more of a macho man. And for example, he says, "Let's get that drink," and the quote says, "Let's get that drink," said Macomber. In his life, he had never felt so good. So yeah, there's a development right there. And although hasn't killed all the buffaloes, he has had some success, and he has gained Wilson's trust or Wilson's respect. So thereby he finds his joy in hunting. And then how Margaret feels about the situation or the hunt, and she doesn't seem really happy about the hunt, but it could be because of the development of Francis' personality, and she's somehow feeling like a third wheel because now Francis and Wilson are becoming more of a like the duo, and she's had a kind of a crush on Wilson, so thereby she's also a little jealous that he's not or that she's not getting the attention from him.
And from page 222 to the end, we have some questions which ask something about the ending and what happens at the ending and why. And what happens at the ending is that the buffalo hunt isn't finished. One of the buffaloes is still alive and walking around, um, um, and therefore, and yeah, they're going, and Wilson and Francis are going out to hunt it again and finally kill it. Um, and this is and that is Francis very excited about, and he's eager to kill this animal. Meanwhile, Margaret is not so excited about it. Yeah, and then yeah, and then at the hunt, in the at in the begin in the climax where everything happens fast, um, Margot hits Francis shoots Francis from the car, which firstly she's not allowed to, and secondly she ends up killing her husband instead of participating in the actual hunt of an animal. Um, and afterwards, Wilson begins to criticize her because he has finally learned to appreciate him as a person, because Francis has developed into a man of some kind. Uh, and meanwhile, Wilson criticizes Margot. She cries, and she can only make him stop by uh, by actually giving by respectfully telling him to stop, and therefore he stops. and this happens because there's the development of Francis is too much. He has become way too much of a man, for Margot to like her, to like him, or to handle him, since she is only interested in his money. Um, so the lack of respect in the couple is the reason why Francis is shot, because now he has finally obtained the power to become the man and to oppress her. So therefore she can't handle it and shoots him off by herself. Yeah, and we say the title is of the short story was The Short Happy Life of Francis Macomber. And at first it seems like a bit of irony because the marriage is so miserable, and Francis is such a weakling that he may not be fulfilling the role of a man. So it's kind of ironic that it's a happy life. But it also gives a hint towards the ending, because he ends up being happy. He has finally learned to be a man, and therefore he's very happy with his life, even though it may be short because he's shot by his wife. And yeah, it shows some kind of development from Francis in the process when we're given the hint of the ending. And then the build-up of the story, it's pretty obvious. It's an obvious choice, and it's a very, very good choice, because in the beginning we are not told the reason why there's so much tension between the three parts in the story, Wilson and the Macomber couple. But the flashback gives a little bit of gives the suspense and gives the information needed to set the stage for a drama. Is that a thing? So yeah, it's a good build up.
And then we have in general about the text, who's the hero or the anti-hero of the text. And somehow Francis, he develops into a hero because he builds more guts and get things done when he develops more into a man also. And through the whole story, Wilson is the macho hero because he's very macho and he's like the man of the story. And then in the end, Margot becomes the anti-hero because she ends up killing Francis.
We can relate the text to Macbeth, because there's also this kind of pressure from the wives in Macbeth. It's Lady Macbeth pushing Macbeth to kill the king and pushing him to do all these things. And in this text, we're seeing Francis being pushed around by his wife, and yeah, so there's a desire from the men to kind of show and prove to their wives that they aren't these cowards as they're set up to be. And the point where these stories kind of differs is how they how the okay, the point at where these stories differ is how Margaret and Lady Macbeth reacts to what they've like kind of created with their men, and it ends up in this text that Margaret shoots her man, and in Macbeth that Lady Macbeth kills herself of like sorrow, so to say.